What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So we're out in the shop tonight. I picked up a cordless fuel transfer pump from Amazon, and I have a use for it that is not for what it was designed for, but we're going to see what happens. I've looked at some reviews on this. I only found a couple on YouTube, and the ones I found, well, there was one guy that kind of went over it, talked about the battery and stuff, which I think they have since updated a little bit, because this has an 18 volt, like he said in his video, where the one he bought was marketed as a 24 volt. Anyway, he had some good points and whatnot, but he didn't really show, other than transferring a liquid from one jug to the other for just a couple of seconds, anything about the pump. So I want to go in more in depth into it. The other video I seen was a guy that looked like he just had totally no use for it. He just pulled it out of the box. They shipped it for him for free. He pulled it out of the box, showed what was in the box. Anyway, I actually have use for it. I bought this. I bought two of them because I looked at some of the Milwaukee transfer pumps. They're 3 times as expensive as this, and looking at the reviews on them and the videos I seen on them, I wasn't super impressed with them either. The only thing that I do like about the Milwaukee is the battery. On the Milwaukee, I have some Milwaukee tools already, so I already have a battery, so I usually keep one on charger. That would have been great, but the Milwaukee transfer pump is made for water. This is actually made for fuel. This is a vane style pump. The one guy takes the cover off of here and shows the vanes in the pump. It's a vane style pump, just like a Feel-Right pump would be. What he did not discuss is this does have a bypass valve in it, as you see right there. I can push it with my finger. I'll show it from the other side. Right there. See, I push it with my finger. What that does, this is your suction side of the pump. This is the pressure side. So when pressure builds up, if you let off the nozzle, say you put a nozzle on it, the nozzle does not come with it, hose does not come with it. I'll show you what comes with it in a minute. I ordered this Feel-Right nozzle as well. Ordered some hose. I'm going to make up a little kit. I'll share with you the fittings and stuff I got, the hose I got, the nozzle I got. I'll put links to all that in the description if I do not forget. We'll lay this down over here for the time being. But anyway, so whenever you let off the nozzle, that bypass valve should open up, allowing the fluid to circulate in here. Of course, that's not good for the pump to let that happen for very long. It's going to create heat. It's creating pressure, load against the engine or the motor, electric motor. It says 4-second idle time. I think that may be a little extreme. Seems like you should be able to go for 30 seconds or a minute or whatever. But anyway, I was reading the label here. Anyways, it's got a little mounting plate here. You can mount it to a block of wood or whatever you want to do, mount it in a case, whatever the case may be. It comes with some fittings here when you buy this thing that we're not going to use. It comes with some tape, a strainer. All these are for 1-inch hose. It comes with some spare vanes in there as well for the pump, and a spare Allen key. So you remove these 3 bolts, you got some spare pump vanes in there. As I say, we're not going to use any of that. We may use the Teflon tape just because it's there, and I'm going to need some. But I ordered 2 of these for 2 reasons. One, because this battery here, from what I can figure out, is only fits this tool. So it comes with 1 battery. It comes with a charger. The charger it comes with is like this right here, and it actually plugs in to the center of the battery, which is a very, very odd design. But it plugs in like this. You plug this in the wall. It has a little light right here. It turns red. When it gets charged, it turns green. No big deal. This is a 2.5 amp hour battery is what they got written on here, of 18 volts. And it simply slips back on here. But as I was saying, this battery will only work on this tool. You cannot use a DeWalt or a Black & Decker or Harbor Freight or any of that stuff. None of that stuff will fit this, from what I've found. It has four terminals across there, and then it only has 2 spades here. And so I like to have 2 batteries on any of my cordless tools, because it's always seemed to me, you forget to put the one on charge, and then you pick up the tool and you're doing something with it, and then it goes dead, and then you have to wait an hour or longer in order to finish doing what you were doing. So if you got 2 batteries, if it goes dead, you simply pull it off, put your other battery on there, continue your operation. I don't really care for that charger they got on there. And I looked at, you can actually buy some mounts like this. Say if you want to run a Milwaukee battery, they're called Power Wheels adapters, I think is what they're listed on Amazon as. But I'm sure it wouldn't be too hard to buy one of these Power Wheel adapters, is what they're called on Amazon, and take this plastic cover off and screw it in here, wire it up and everything, and then you could transform this to run Milwaukee batteries or DeWalt batteries or whatever you want to do. They make them for several different batteries. The problem with that is I looked at the cost of that, and I figured by the time that I go through the trouble and do that, for not very much more, I could simply buy a second pump, and then I have 2 batteries, I have 2 pumps, and I actually want 2 pumps for 2 reasons. One, I want to see if this thing will pump 15W40. I've just got through changing the oil on my semi here, and I buy my oil now in 5-gallon buckets because it's a little bit cheaper, and that seems to be the way that they mostly carry it at Tractor Supply. I used to buy my oil in the gallon jugs by the case at Napa, but Rotella got so expensive, and there for a while was not even available at any price. You simply couldn't get any. So I switched to the Traveler brand at Tractor Supply, which comes in a 5-gallon bucket. So then I started buying that oil in 5-gallon buckets. And so I was curious to know if this pump here will pump 1540. I think it will. Being a vane pump, it has the pressure relief valve. So I purchased some hose, and I'm going to make this up, and hopefully I can stick this hose down in the 5-gallon bucket of 1540 in here, and we're going to see if this pump works, if it'll fill up this engine in my semi with oil without me having to pick up a heavy 5-gallon bucket and try to hold a funnel and hold it up over my shoulder and try to pour the oil in there without pouring it everywhere and the funnel getting knocked over and the whole 9 yards that usually goes with this operation. So that's what I bought one of these for, and then I bought the other one for what its designed purpose, transfer of fuel. And if the one doesn't work for the oil, well, I'll just simply have a spare, and a spare battery in the whole spare 9 yards. It's not that big a deal. As I say, it's still cheaper than buying one Milwaukee pump. And so let's get this set up over here. And the suction line I'm going with for right now is going to be this right here. This is PVC tubing that is 5/8, and it's got a wire, reinforced steel spring wire, kind of like a notebook binder, that's built inside of it. It's not inside the tubing, it's not outside the tubing, it's built into the tubing. And so whenever you cut it, you have to take a pair of wire snips and snip it. This is a garden hose adapter right here I put on there. That way, if I'm going to use this as a fuel transfer pump, I can leave this in hooked to the pump. A lot of people like to use the garden hose fittings like you would for a washing machine on the pump end as well. Being as I don't know how well this is going to work, I opted not to go with that right now. I'm just going to use a barb fitting on it because that's a cheaper way, and I don't know if this is going to work. If it does work, I'll probably wind up on the oil pump taking this hose off and using just a straight piece of pipe that will stick down in the bucket with a 90-degree elbow on the pump, and will probably give me a better setup if this works for that. I've researched some different cordless pumps for 5-gallon buckets. I did find a company called McNaught, I believe is how you say it, that does make one. It's about $400 that will pump oil, and we may have to go that route if this doesn't work. But I'm hoping that this here should do the trick, and I know it should do the trick for fuel transfer. And so I made this hose up right here for fuel transfer. We're going to use it for oil right now, but I made it up so that you can put a cap on this end. That way when you're done, so you pull this out of whatever your tank you're siphoning fuel out of, put a cap on it, keeps the grit, grime, dirt, fuel from running out, and then the other end will have the manual fuel nozzle on it, and so that will close that end off to keep fuel from running out, contaminants to getting in, and yada yada yada. Also, whichever one we set up for fuel, I'm going to go back and add a filter on at a later date, but I want to mainly just plumb this up and make sure that these pumps are going to work, and get a little bit of time on them, see how it goes. And I think we'll be able to tell that by pumping this oil here. As I say, I have not seen a YouTube video where anybody has done a really reviewed where they actually used it for productive. They were just giving a demonstration or whatnot. So I actually want to do this for you know, something productive and see how it's going to work. All right, guys. So I picked up some of these hose clamps here off of Amazon. They are a T-bolt style hose clamp, and they did come with this wrench here, which is nothing too fancy. But anyways, I'm going to put some Teflon sealant around that to make that slide on a little bit easier and seal it off. So as I said, my fitting setup here is pretty straightforward. It's just a hose barb for 5/8 hose with a 3/4 inch pipe thread going into the pump. Whereas the ones that come with the pump are 3/4, well, I guess that's an O-ring thread, but it has a 1 inch right there. But this is going to work. I put Teflon on it and everything. We're going to put our hose clamp on here, and I'm hoping that we won't have any kind of leaks here by doing it this way. I have to back off of that clamp just a touch, I believe. Should go right up on there like that. And then should be able to tighten that down. And that will be the suction side. And then we will do the same thing on the other side. These should hold a good bit better than a standard hose clamp, which I guess a standard hose clamp should be fine, but I thought this would be a little better. I'll put a link to these in the description as well. These are 20 to 22 millimeter. It took me a little bit to figure out what size to go with. I want to make sure I had the ones that would fit the hose, because there are only a couple millimeter difference there. And so I want to be sure I had what I needed, so it took me a little bit to figure that out. But anyway, this is our suction side. Again, this will drop down in the tank, or a bucket in this case, to try this thing out in oil. Another 3/4 hose barb there. I don't know what the actual O-ring thread this is supposed to be, like the ones that come in here, but the national pipe thread does fit. It doesn't seem to be a tapered thread though, but with the tape on there, it did snug down. I don't think we're going to have any leaks. I think it's going to work just fine. Let me figure out how long of hose I want to get out right here for this, and get this cut. And when you cut this, I'm using this hose cutter and a pair of wire snips to cut the wire off, like right there where I cut. You see that piece of wire there. So anyway, let me get this pulled out, measured out, get this put together, and then we'll test this thing out. All right, guys, I want to zoom in there so I can get a good picture, maybe use that for a thumbnail. But I've got everything rigged up here, and we're going to test this out in this bucket of oil, see what it works, how it works. The nozzle here is just like I'll have it if it does work. I've got 6 foot of this hose with a nozzle. This suction hose, if this does work, I will probably change it. I'll use this suction hose for fuel transfer, and if this works for oil, I'm going to get me a 90-degree elbow here and a piece of pipe, And this will sit right down in there, and the piece of straight pipe will go straight to the bottom of the bucket and straight through the spout. And when I get ready to swap buckets, I'll go just pick the pump straight up, stick it in another bucket. Should be good to go. But right now, we're going to see how it does with this suction hose, because I had to order a roll of this hose. And so that's what we're going to use for right now. Let me move this over here and open this bucket up, and we'll get you guys set up and see what happens. Alright guys, I'm not too sure how well you're going to be able to see what I got going on here, but hopefully I can get everything in the frame that I'm trying to get here. So this is our hose. It's going to drop right down in the bottom of the bucket like so. I'm going to set this up here like so, a little closer so you guys can see it. Hopefully you can see it. I need to adjust that camera frame there just a little bit. If I turn it around here like this. As I say, a better transfer hose would probably be a little bit better. As I'm trying to get the pump and where I'm putting the oil in at, I'm right here. This is where I got to put my oil in at. I may have to bring that back up just a little bit. It's going to be hard to get both in there. But we're going to try. Alright guys, here we go. Hadn't even turned it on. It's not sucking yet. Oh, there it goes. Okay, here we go. Seems to be working. Alright, I'm going to stop and zoom you guys in here for a minute. 5 gallons. I don't know how long that took. I will time it on the second bucket and we'll get a gallon per minute. This is supposed to be 12 gallons per minute pumping fuel, but pumping oil, it's not going to come anywhere close to that because of the thickness of it. We'll just stick that hose down in the fresh bucket here beside it, leave it sitting on that bucket. That way I'm not touching the oily hose that much. I think we got most of it out of there. I can do better with a piece of pipe. I just wasn't sure that this was even going to work to begin with. So now that I know that it will, well, no big deal. So I'm going to set the timer on my phone and we'll see how long that it's going to take to transfer the second 5 gallon bucket. So I have it going in the other bucket there now. Alright, so I set the timer on my phone, then I'm going to turn the pump on and then squeeze the handle. Alright, so the timer's running. We'll find out how long it takes to get to the end of the bucket. That's all she wrote. So 2 minutes and 45 seconds. And that's 5 gallons. So that's about what, 2 gallons a minute? Somewhere in there, which is not bad for pumping oil. Alright guys, we got our cap here. Put on there like that. That should keep any leakage out. one more time for those in the back. This hose here, I'm going to take back off of this pump, I believe, and I'm going to put it on the other pump, and I'll use it as a fuel transfer pump. And this one here, I'm going to put a 90 on a piece of pipe. That way, when I set it down in the bucket like this right here, I can line the pipe up with a hole. It'll go all the way to the bottom of the bucket. I cut me some relief notches in the bottom of the bucket, and then I won't have the little bit out of there that this hose is leaving behind. Because there's still, well, there's still about a gallon left in that one where the hose is curled up. But this one here, I think I did a little bit better job. Yeah, there's very little in that. But anyway, this, I wanted to make sure the pump was going to work before I went to the trouble to go and buy a piece of pipe and all that and hooking it up. And then it not even be able to pump oil with it. So now that I know this will work, I'll go get me a piece of pipe and set up on this pump, and I'll use this for my oil changes. I think the nozzle and everything is going to work great, and this will also be able to pump hydraulic fluid. If I need to pump some hydraulic fluid in my dozer or anything like that, should work great for that as well. Alright guys, I figure we could humor ourselves with the instructions here that Anbull sends with it. As I said, the flow is 12 gallons a minute. That's with diesel fuel. The oil, there was still about a gallon of oil left in that bucket, and so you're probably only getting about 1.5 gallons a minute, which is about what I figured really. The pump that McNaught makes for that application, I think, is 1.3 gallons a minute, and any of your normal oil pumping stuff, even the commercial stuff, is only usually 2 or 3 gallons a minute, mostly. It is strictly forbidden to pump flammable liquids such as water. You seen any flammable water? Probably shouldn't pump that. Anyway, water, gasoline, alcohol, etc. with this oil pump. I probably wouldn't pump water with it because it's a vane pump and that's cast iron in there. It'll probably rust up if you do. The oil pump can work continuously for 20 minutes, and no oil-free idling or back suction shall not exceed 5 minutes, so as to avoid damage to the pump. After the oil pump has been running for 500 hours, you should ask a professional for maintenance. This thing makes it 500 hours. That I will be impressed, really impressed. That'll be like the next 30 years. I mean, if this thing is still running in 500 hours, that'd be great. Anyway, you can kind of read through that, see anything you might pick up on, but yeah. Other than that, seems to be a great pump. Instructions probably could use a little work there. Flammable water. Anyway, so what's my thoughts on it? I think that's going to be very handy. That's the reason I bought 2 of them. I'll always have one battery charged. I don't know how long it will run on that one battery, how many gallons of the pump. We pumped, well, we would have pumped 10 gallons. We actually pumped about 9 because the hose didn't go all the way to the bottom of the bucket. I told you my fix for that, and that won't be an issue again. Of course, it wasn't that big a deal to pour the extra 1 gallon out into a funnel. But this will eliminate some of the dirt and stuff on top of the buckets that you got to wipe off and all that stuff from when you turn it up, try to pour it in there. Eliminates trying to hold the bucket up over my shoulder and try to hold the funnel, and the funnel falls over and all that stuff. As in the case of my dozer, the hydraulic tank is up here about head high where the cap's at, and the cage for the rear back there, you can't hardly get a bucket up to pour in it even with a funnel. I mean, it's hard to get some oil in that thing. You can unbolt the cage, kind of swing it back out of the way, but even so, you're still, I mean, you're up trying to hold a bucket above your head to pour it out in through a funnel. Bad deal. This right here is going to be great. If I rig it up with that pipe, I can set it right down on the bucket, grab that nozzle, put it in there, fill my dozer up with hydraulic fluid. I can fill my truck up with 1540. The hydraulic fluid in the 1540 is pretty close. I think the 1540 is actually a little thicker than what the hydraulic fluid would be. So anyway, I may order another one of these pumps, and that way I have one for the 1540, have one for hydraulic fluid, and then one for diesel fuel. I don't know. Or maybe I'll just use the same one. Either way, I'm happy with it so far. We got that 10 gallons pumped. Like I say, I'm gonna set the other one up for a fuel transfer. I'm gonna put a filter and everything on it. That way, if I need to move some fuel from one tank or another, I'll have it set up. Because if you see here, I have some equipment sitting over here in the back of my shop. And I can't always, with the stuff sitting in here without moving everything to it or having a really, really long hose to get over there to it. Sometimes I need to tote fuel over there in a bucket or a can. And you see how the fuel tank is on that same deal. It'd be pretty simple if I could just take some over there in a bucket, set the bucket on the floor, drop the hose and the pump in there, fill it up out of the bucket, and we're good to go. So anyway, I'll put everything that I bought here in the description, links to everything on Amazon. If I do not forget, wrap this video up. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video.